Alright guys, watch this video for Monday, which would be June 27th. We were talking last week about Brexit and how that could rattle the markets. It certainly did. Um, and that this spike right here is not, I don't know why you get these errant ticks sometimes on eSignal, or probably a lot of charting services. But it did gap down and go up to close to 207. So that, I don't know why that's up there, but I'll show you an intraday here in a second. But anyway, gap down, had a nice bounce intraday, but ended up closing at our pretty much at its lows. Let's go to 5-minute candles here. All right, so there's the gap down, and I said in chat, hey guys, it doesn't matter that you're gapping down and the world's freaking out over Brexit or whatever. It doesn't mean you just short, and this shows you why. People jump in, they think they're expert traders, and they say, well, the world's going to hell. Let me short the SPY on the open here, and look how bad the shorts paid here. And I guarantee you there were people that shorted at the open and then shorted more, and so on, and ended up covering, probably on this push higher. So I just start every day in cash and I let things unfold. But one thing I can teach you as a new trader, if you're a new trader, is to never guess, okay? Make the setups for them and then play them. If you just short this at the open, you're just guessing. A lot of people would argue that, well, all traders are guessing, but, you can take an entry on a much more common sense level on a stock than just saying, hey, it's opening down here, I think it's going to keep falling. That's a flat out guess. I tell my traders, every time you press that button to take a trade, you should be able to explain the reason why you're taking that trade to somebody standing over your shoulder. Even if nobody's standing over your shoulder, pretend there's somebody standing over your shoulder and give them a detailed explanation of why you're buying or shorting that stock right there. If you can't do that, you shouldn't take the trade, all right? You're just guessing. Okay, so anyway, having said that, let's go back to the daily. Again, you had a spike up to about here, closed at its lows. You do have the 200-day in play. I still don't think this is going to get a lot of follow through to the downside. I just don't. I think everyone's going to realize, hey, this actually might be a good thing down the road. But it doesn't matter what I think. I'm going to play the charts just as I told you I would. So I still have a list for tomorrow. All right. HTBX was on watch for Friday, and then we had everything gapping down. So you have this big spike out of a really nice consolidation, nice volume on this spike. And as I said in the video on Friday, and I'm going to double check here, this doesn't have a huge float for a stock, and I almost never trade stocks under $1. 14 million share float, which is really small for an 80-cent stock, or 70-cent stock, sorry. So I like this as a potential long, only with the proper intraday setup, and I'll make sure that the SPY isn't tanking at the same time. But that one could have a decent, I wouldn't be surprised to see that thing get to $1 one of these days soon, which, excuse me, is a pretty nice percentage gain from 70 cents. So it'll be on watch. Okay, ZAIS had this huge move, actually called that a doubled after my call on Thursday. And now a much lower volume inside day on Friday. A lot of times you get a third day play and it shoots back up. So this goes on watch for Monday. CETX, I'm not exactly in love with this thing, but it did have this big move here and you just got a couple days lower, a much lower volume. So I want to watch that one. I apologize if you can tell I'm sucking on a piece of candy. It seemed to help this little coughing fit I just had. First rule of broadcasting, you always want to be sucking on something before you go on the air. All you Michael Scott fans are saying that's what she said. But it's helping me be able to talk because I don't know why. I got a dry throat all of a sudden. NYMX was on bounce watch already and had a really nice bounce, but it's still interesting to me for a follow through. You've got, after the gap up, you've got resistance around 320. Happened again on Friday, and even in that really weak tape, it ends up curving back up and closing near the high. So it's certainly interesting for more upside here. I'm going to have that one on watch. PLNT, really strong move on Thursday and stayed pretty strong on Friday. So that's on long watch. I like it, over 1860, over Friday's high. This one might just retest and maybe break through Thursday's high. So got to have that one on watch. RXII. Gap down with the market, but closed really strong. And that's after a very strong 2.5-day move before reversing at the 200-day. I like the relative strength in this one. So it's got to go back on watch. BSPM. BSPM, if you watch the video that I put out on Thursday night for Friday, this was already on our watch list. and it looked like this for my video. I said I like this as a potential bounce because of the recent strong move, low float, 4 days lower on smaller volume and nearing the 200 day. And look what happens. Hits the 200 day, and I actually saw this giving, and I'll just teach you my favorite. It's probably my favorite setup on the planet, and this met all the parameters. Excuse me. And I actually saw the setup unfolding and still managed to not get this, but that was because I was really, really cautious about the market opening, and I was actually a little concerned about brokers not being able to give you fills and such, because I've seen on chaos filled days when there's a macro event, I've seen a lot of people, and there were people in the chat room complaining that their brokers, their platforms weren't working, orders weren't filling, and so on. So I didn't want to get anybody in trouble, but I'm going to show you the setup. So remember, this is the daily before Friday. You have a huge move, low floater, 4 days down. In the recent support was the last place that bounced nicely was 3. You also have the 200 day there. So that is just a great setup for a bounce on an intraday basis. And this is what we love when we have something on Bounce Watch, a recent high flyer that's down a few days on Bounce Watch. We love to see an initial sell-off and then a quick rebound, right? And now you've got a fairly narrow range, 320, 306 low. So you have like a 14-cent range, so you buy this back through the highs with a low of day stop, and look at that thing. So it gave the perfect setup too. I mean, I'm embarrassed that I didn't call it or trade it because it was actually on my radar, but the overall market, this, you got to understand, this happened about 15 minutes in, and I was expecting broker issues for people, and I was also expecting the SPY to possibly tank, and it just didn't seem like a day on the first day after Brexit to call one of these low floaters. So it shows how smart I am, right? But anyway, monster move. Because it moved so far in a week tape, you're talking a low of 306 and a high of 559. This one has to be on watch all week next week for low risk entries, all right? DELT, another one had relative strength, had this huge pop. You have 3 lower highs now. Just a potential long play. Very, very low volume stock, so be careful if you trade it. TWLO, you can see not a lot of history. Came public on Thursday and had a huge move. And then on Friday, a more quiet inside day. This might be a third day play to the long side. And then lastly, I have CLNT. This gapped up on big volume on Thursday, ripped, but ended up closing in its lows, and then again lower on Friday, but a nice narrow range. I'm not in love with this one, but it's a low float and did have news that spiked it on Thursday, so this one might be another bounce play for Monday. Anyway, guys, having said all that, remember I'm a day trader. I'm in cash every night. I want to make it so this list is a list of potential trades I'm looking to make some money in tomorrow, right? I'm not in any of these, and I may not trade any of these. It'll depend on how the day unfolds, because I also watch scanners for momentum plays, gap plays, and so on. So you never know what I'm going to trade tomorrow until the day unfolds. But this is the list I'm starting with. We'll add gappers in the morning, and you'll notice that my focus is primarily on lower price stocks, and that's because of the percentage moves you can get in them. Okay, you don't get Apple doubling in a day. Like BSPM almost doubled yesterday. ZAIS, doubled after the call on Thursday. That just doesn't happen. So that's why that's my focus, because if you can be at your screens and you can be ready for these setups and you're focusing on recent high flyers on these lower price, low float stocks, you can make your money that you need every day in a very short period of time, get back to cash. To me, it's in that way, if you trade them that way, it's actually a very safe way to play these, and the upside on them is so great that it doesn't make sense for me to focus on anything else. All right, so that's my spiel. Have a great night. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. We'll talk to you on Monday.